congratulations. This is tremendous work. Here, I put him on the defense right away.
What do you think about Dick? Can you believe that? I mean,
well, I was very proud for you. It was a great moment. I've spoken with Dick many a time, and he's crazy
about
you.
Yeah, right. That's what.
No, he and I were making the same rounds when Johnny died.
What are those rounds? What do you do?
Well, you go on all the shows and everybody.
Oh, to talk about.
To talk about. I think we both did CNN's. Remember Aaron Brown? Long before there was a. Anderson Cooper.
Right.
But anyway, we died. He's a wonderful man.
So
knows everything. Worked for Parr. Wrote for Parr, wrote for Carson,
Now, he wrote for Carson, and then he went and did his own thing, which never sat that well with Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny always questioned. Johnny loved Dick, Cavett, and I think he was very paternal about him, too. But I think he, at the same time, wondered if Dick strayed into the realm of the controversy, because he always thought that controversy was easy, and you could do that on the Sunday morning shows, and... but Dick is just a great impish wit, much like yourself. You're
Stop.
No, really,
Stop,
you're a gifted man.
Bill,
this man needs a show. Oh, this is a show.
Let me
Hello, YouTube.
Well, what I loved about Cavett, what I love about him in general, and he spoke to this a little on the video, is that for me the thing I like about talk shows, such as a late night talk show, is that there's a conversation going on that should, at its finest, operate on two levels. On the one level, it's this artifice of we're having a real conversation that you would never have in front of an audience. Like if we were talking in private, that's what a conversation is.
Right.
But then at the same time, if you do it right, it also does turn into a real conversation. And Cavett was able to do that. Carson could do that. There are some who do it now, but it seems
Very
like
few, yeah,
that's my question. Why is it not important anymore that the actual interview achieves a real conversation at any level?
There's no art form to it anymore. I will say that Letterman goes hither and yon, but he
can
listens.
do it if he has O'Reilly on.
If he has somebody on that he cares about, like O'Reilly or Stern or anyone. Dave is great when he has a newsmaker with him or someone of some gravitas or just a big deal star. I mean, he had Al Pacino last night, crazy too. It was just like 4 segments of insanity, but he let Al do his thing. It was kind of like this segment. But no, it was but you want to see a Dave Letterman with an Al Pacino. You want to see those guys. I mean, Dave got the Kennedy Center honor, and which is Jimmy Kimmel said during the presentation, which I love this line because they all had little medals. You probably had Kennedy Center honorees on this show, haven't you?
Well, I think not yet.
Yeah.
Next month we're having Zeppelin.
Good. That's good. He thought that there was a 60% chance Dave would hang himself with the medal before the night was over.
Well, let me ask you this then.
It was fascinating to watch Letterman, by the way, be praised because he hates praise. He just hates it.
So Letterman's this guy you see, and you kind of know what you get with Letterman. You know we have a conception of who he is as a real person, but obviously when he's sitting at the desk and there's somebody on the couch, he can be and is usually very, very charming. And there's this idea that a talk show host is often different in real life than they are when they're under the lights. And I don't want to in any way compare myself to people who are actually doing it on TV. But this is basically...
You should, because I'm working on this for you. Right?
But that's great. But this is basically who I am. Like off stage, I don't have the microphone, but I'm the same guy. And there seems to be a few people like that. Kimmel seems like if I met him, he'd be kind of the same guy.
He's exactly the same guy.
But let's talk about Carson. Was Carson...
Carson could be, but it depended on... at some point, he became so big, and, there was a... I've been working on this epic biography of him since he died, and he may kill me at this point. But I'm doing the Robert Caro version of Johnny Carson. But there's something very important about Carson. He 7 different presidencies I think his show spanned, and America was a much more innocent place. I mean, he got out just as in '92. Well, the world changed, completely since that time, and I talked to him 10 years after that. I've met with him a couple times before that, but for an Esquire profile, I somehow got him to give up his J.D. Salinger routine for an interview and profile the man who disappeared. He literally, I always say he was like a magician. Carson was a bit of an illusionist. I mean, he was really an illusionist, but I think the show was an illusion to some degree too. But he could be just that affable and charming if he was comfortable. He was rarely comfortable, much like Letterman.
We'll talk about the book, and I guess I can understand. First of all, I can't conceive of writing a bio of such a figure.
Me either. I don't know what I was thinking. Really, it's a.
But he seems to be the hardest person to do that about, because I'd imagine two things. One, he was obviously a very private person who had probably told his friends, don't talk about me to other people.
It was funny, except when I approached him, and people always wondered, how did you get Carson to because Barbara Walters and everybody was trying to get him to, do an interview. And I had tried for years. I'd sent him notes or whatever, and then at one point, the 10th anniversary of his retirement was coming up, and I think I just basically informed him that I would be writing about him in his retirement, and if there are any ground rules. And he'd met me. I'd met him a few times, so he sort of knew I was a okay guy, and wrote a lot about Dave and Jay and such, but he was no fan of Jay. Yeah, he was appalled, and I'm appalled too that I actually helped Jay write a book, and we shouldn't even bring it up in public.
Well, you just did. It's called Leaning with My Chin, right?
Leaning with My Chin, yeah.
And you wrote that book.
Yeah,
but he didn't put your name on the cover.
Yeah, Carson said, well, I kept looking for your name, thinking Jay was trying to, screw me out of notoriety. When in fact I was just ashamed to have my name anywhere near it. No, it's a delightful book. But nothing in it is true.
Bill, we once had a conversation, and I was just trying my hardest, not because I believed it necessarily, but just seeing if I could get at an angle where I could defend Jay Leno for all that happened with Conan and everything. And you basically said, Mark, shut up.
I was hard-lined. Well, it was. Well, poor Conan. I mean, who's watching him now? I got to tell you, though, I knew he was doing something unique last night, and I think if they repeat it, it's called Occupy Conan, and as he had invited. It's actually really great. I wouldn't be talking about Conan right now, but I mean, because nobody's watching him on. You watch him on your computer screen. People don't tune into TBS. I don't think necessarily. It's quite a come down from what he had. He was sitting on what he perceived to be the throne, and we all did. But Jay came in and stained the throne.
Why?
He left.
I don't know anybody, and I obviously don't. I'm not.
The Tonight Show I was talking about, because that Johnny, the hallowed place, and.
Why is Leno still number one? Is the Tonight Show still mean something to people?
I think it's habit. It's habit, and he's affable. He's the worst talk show host ever. He was one of the great, ostensibly one of the greatest stand-up comedians we'll ever know. I mean, he was tremendous. He was a great guest on Letterman's old show, the late night show that Conan then took over, and Jimmy
I never
Fallon
understood why it's assumed that a stand-up should be a talk show host. Letterman did do stand-up, but
he was a broadcaster. He was a weatherman, and he did radio and TV things in college, and so he knew his way around broadcasting to some degree. But and really, I think the best hosts have some broadcast in their blood. Kimmel was a radio guy, and I think he's actually one of the great listeners and the funniest. He's lightning quick. He's paying attention at all times. And it scares me, you've got a lot of that yourself.
What?
I knew. See, I do that. I did that. I should say that I did the Playboy interview with Kimmel. It's coming up in the next issue, I think, and I was complimenting him to that degree about how, he's one of the great listeners, and what what is the secret of that? And he said, I wasn't paying attention. So your instincts are pure.
So why, last question, why there's so much celebrity
It's
journalism.
awful. Oh, God, isn't it awful?
And so just give me real quick, how you get around it? How do
I live with myself?
No, I mean that's something that we can talk about after.
I try to elevate. You try to. I always treat them as. Well, you know what I do? I'm more of a writer than a reporter, although I think I have passion and great knowledge of late night in particular and comedy, I think, and such. But, I'm trying to create something on the page that means... I love the way the words are arranged. I mean, the writing is everything to me. And I've always approached celebrities as, you're my palette, and I got to go off and take you to my canvas and see what I can come up with and find... new ways to get at this, because it's all the same crap usually, and it's celebrity journalism it drives the culture, and yet it's gotten so cheap. I mean, this is the worst time ever. Anybody can be.
Well, what I find fascinating about it,
I want you more famous because you're actually legitimately talented,
but
unlike most people.
What's fascinating to me about it is that everybody knows the game at this point, and I guess the people have known the game for a long time. So the key is, what is the motivation of the celebrity? Sometimes it's just to promote something, but other times there might be something else deeper going on that they want to communicate. No, you don't think?
You mean a guest?
Not in a talk show, but when you're if you interviewed, when you interviewed Carson, he's not promoting anything.
Oh no!
He wants to tell. For some reason he agreed to it, and it wasn't because you were a nice guy.
That was one of those special instances where there was nothing to promote. He was, it was like stalking Greta Garbo or something. But he was, I just loved he's so elusive, and of course he's very elusive to write about, and it's taken me years ideally we're going to be done with this thing next year, and out, people can see it, but I did the American Masters that was on PBS.
Which is great.
That was the highest rated, which shows you the power of Carson, with at least PBS viewers or people who read. Which is a good sign for me, that it was the highest rated American Masters in 28-year history of that show. So there's something still very alluring about this guy.
People always say that there will never be another Carson. If Carson came around today, would he be Carson?
Well, no. He'd be lost in the shuffle. Today is what you're doing is more inventive, and probably you're driving in on a different path. And that's the way the world's going to work now. It's because everything is, there's just too many of them.